And I realized that and the best way to describe this is, I don't know, have you seen those old prison films where they had a ball and chain wrapped around your leg
Yeah.
so that it kept you from escaping? I felt like I had hundreds of those around my leg, and I'm just dragging it everywhere I go. And I realized that it's so hard to carry this excess weight with me everywhere. And I said, okay, I don't live in a world that's free of judgment, but even if I'm half of the person that I just was, that's still so much better than where I am right now. And so I made a commitment to myself. I said, Saahil, stop pleasing others. First, please yourself. Make yourself the first priority. And we've all heard that it's only when your cup is overflowing can you share your drink with others. And mine was nearing empty. And so through trial and error, through learning from some of the best out there, from mentoring, from coaching, you name it, I've tried so many different things. I started to identify these balls and chains wrapped around my leg, which I now term as clutter, and then work on eliminating them one at a time.
Welcome, fellow entrepreneurs and goal getters, to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelley Beveridge, and my guest today, Saahil Mehta. Really excited to have him on the episode. He is chiming in from Mumbai, currently living in Dubai with his wife and 2 kids. And he's just a special soul. I've recently met him, and I love his energy and his message and who he is and how he's out there servicing the world right now. And he's an entrepreneur, a mountaineer, and he's a peak performance coach and author of the book Break Free, A Guide to Declutter Your Life. Oh my gosh. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. He runs 3 businesses, and he just has such great philosophies of life, which he's discovered through his own journey. And so today we're going to be talking about how to enable the conscious leader and entrepreneur to define what success means to you and eliminate clutter that's in your way to live a 0 regret life. So just so excited for this topic and to have you on. And so Saahil, welcome to the episode and thanks for being here.
So glad to be here. And Kelley, I'm going to make sure that you introduce me for everything moving forward. That was amazing.
You got it. I think I want to go on tour with you based on the adventures you have. I'm in. Well, and Saahil, let's talk about this because you and I chatted previously, and I love how you had a pivotal moment or a few pivotal moments in your life that really actually led to you developing this philosophy of breaking free to live a 0 regret life. So maybe you can chat about that because you've achieved some incredible feats as a businessman and an entrepreneur. So how did this become your philosophy?
Kelley, I love sharing stories, so let me share one right now. And I just want to say this off the bat that a lot of people have shifts in their life occur when something perhaps negative happens in their life. In my case, I tasted better. So I thought life was good. Nice house, married, kids, nice car, work is going well. Health seems to be pretty decent overall, can't complain. And then I went on this retreat with some fellow entrepreneurs. And while on this retreat, we all agreed to 2 words. And those 2 words are no judgment. Now, all of a sudden, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. And what I realized during this trip was that I was very much a people pleaser.
Mm.
And so when I unmasked, and that's probably the best word to use, I experienced euphoric joy. I want to give one example. We were at this restaurant one evening, and this is one of those restaurants where they have all these acts while you dine. They got musicians, acrobats, singers, hypnosis. I mean, you name it. They've got all sorts of things going on. And it's one after the other with a few breaks in between. Now, our table happened to be right next to the stage. And when I say right next to it, my arm was on the stage. That's how close I was. Now, the last act was these group of dancers that came on. And then one of them, she looks at me and she says, come up. Now, the previous me, and just so you know, I love to dance, the previous me would have looked the other way, picked up my phone and pretended I was on a call or something, or done anything not to go up because I'm like, oh, what are people going to think? What if I don't dance well? This fear of judgment would start kicking in. And I said, hey, no judgment. Let's go. And so I went up there and I just felt free. And towards the end of the song, something magical happened. This lady who's just met me puts her arms around my neck and just flings the legs up. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm supposed to catch her. Now, fortunately for me, I did. Otherwise, it could have been quite embarrassing. However, as I started to reflect upon it afterwards, I said, she just met me and she had more confidence in me than I had in myself. And so like this, I had many of these liberating moments. And as I'm flying back to Dubai, I wanted to share these moments with my wife. So I asked the air hostess, I said, please, can I get a pen and paper? And I started to write. And as I started to write, tears just started trickling down my face. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? It's not like you to cry. But for some reason, my inner voice just said, don't try to stop it. You're on a plane. You don't know anyone here apart from these few entrepreneurs that you're with. And fortunately, they just left me alone. So it allowed me to process. And I realized, I said, if this is the man who I am, who's so free, who had such a good time, who was so confident with himself, then who's this guy that I'm going back to?
Mm.
And I realized that and the best way to describe this is, I don't know, have you seen those old prison films where they had a ball and chain wrapped around your leg
Yeah.
so that it stopped you from escaping? I felt like I had hundreds of those around my leg and I'm just dragging it everywhere I go. And I realized that it's so hard to carry this excess weight with me everywhere. And I said, okay, I don't live in a world that's free of judgment, but even if I'm half of the person that I just was, that's still so much better than where I am right now. And so I made a commitment to myself. I said, Saahil, stop pleasing others. First, please yourself. Make yourself the first priority. And we've all heard that it's only when your cup is overflowing can you share your drink with others. And mine was nearing empty. And so through trial and error, through learning from some of the best out there, from mentoring, from coaching, you name it, I've tried so many different things. I started to identify these balls and chains wrapped around my leg, which I now term as clutter, and then work on eliminating them one at a time.
Mm.
That's really how this whole concept came about.
Oh my gosh. I love what you just shared. I mean, you spoke about so many great things. And I love it when people share in story because as you are speaking, I'm just relating it to myself, right? In my life. And thank you for that. I'm so grateful you had that experience. And you talked about once you start to unmask, you just have this euphoric joy. And that gave me goosebumps because is that not what we're all destined to experience? Yet we do have this invisible excess weight dragging us down. Most people, if not everyone, can relate in some way to what you just described as your story. And so I'm curious, you said you started to identify the clutter. How did you start to go about doing that? Because I think it's one thing to feel this weight, yet how do we start to identify what it is so one step at a time we can start to let it go?
But look, Kelley, I mean, the most obvious answer is there were many things I already knew. I just, for whatever reason, kept kicking that bucket down the road. I was procrastinating and whatnot. And I said, Sahil, stop. It's time to face it. Whatever it is, whether it's in my mind, whether it's health related, whether it's something to do with a relationship that has gone a bit sideways, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Point is, it's time to face it. And so I didn't necessarily have the tools to face it. Maybe that's the reason why I was scared, or perhaps it was a combination of that and trying to please others. So I was afraid of confrontation. But when I said that it was high time that I did it, because it was important for me to be the best version of myself, because when I'm the best version of myself, I'm a better friend, I'm a better father, a better husband, a better son, a better coworker, a better everything. I mean, you put whatever label you want to give me, I'm much better because I'm happier. I have more joy in my life. And so that was the first one. One is it's things that you already know, but for whatever reason, you choose not to face them. So that was the first one. Then another method that I used, which is very simple and literally takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes a day, is as I went to bed, I would keep a small notepad next to me. And I would ask myself the following two questions. I would first start with, what drained my energy levels today? And that was it. I just noted it down. And I didn't want to end with that. I didn't want to end with what drained my. So the next question was, what elevated my energy levels today? And as I did this day after day after day, I started to see there were some things that were just one off, but there were other things that were repeating themselves. And so I started to see patterns. I started to see that every time a particular incident happened, it would drain me. And so for me, if something is repeated, happening again and again, whether the frequency is daily, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is, that means it's clutter in your life. So that was another way that I experienced it, was just checking in with myself on a daily basis and asking these two very simple questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that because it's practical and it's simple and everyone can do that. And you're looking for evidence, right? You're looking for patterns so you can have some awareness before you start to make the change. And so I'm curious because you talk about decluttering, and I know that I believe you speak about there's mental clutter, emotional clutter, and physical clutter that you start to realize is in the way, right, of you living into your greatness. So can you explain those? Like, what do those three things mean? And why is it essential to take a look at them and declutter so that you can start to achieve clarity and direction in your life?
I love that. So I actually break down my framework, the break free framework, into 4 parts, which is decluttering the mind, decluttering the body, which is the physical self, decluttering relationships, and decluttering your physical environment, the
Mhm.
material world, basically. And so let's just take them one at a time. Decluttering the mind. I always tell people that I work with, I say, you don't need enemies because you have yourself. Yes. You know, we're spending so much time. The only thing that we guarantee is that we're spending time in our head every single day for numerous hours a day, right? We guarantee that we're sleeping with ourselves every single night. So we're always in our head. And so the question then becomes, are your thoughts elevating? Are they allowing you to become a better version of yourself? Or are your thoughts limiting and pulling you down? Because one of the realizations I had when I was on an inner journey one time was whether you choose love or whether you choose pain, ultimately the choice is yours. And so many times when I get into this rut, when I get into this, where the certain emotions start coming out that aren't serving me, I ask myself, I say, Sahil, how can you replace this limiting thought with an elevating thought? Because ultimately everything has multiple perspectives. And let me choose the perspective that serves me, because ultimately it is my choice. No one does anything to me. I allow them to do it to me, for example. So when it comes to the mind, it's really what state of mind are you in? Is it something that's elevating you or limiting you? It basically comes down to that.
Yeah.
When it's the body, we've been blessed with this amazing thing that we can call the human body. It's just a wonderful machine. But for a machine to work at an optimal level, you have to ensure that the fuel that comes in and how you maintain the machine, that's going to give you the best output. So whether it's, and you've all heard it before, it's when it comes to it's food, it's how, your sleep patterns, it's movement, not necessarily going to the gym, but just movement in general. And how are you ensuring that you're taking care by reading labels of food that you digest? Are you making sure you're getting a balanced diet? Are you ensuring that you maximize your sleep routine in a way that you get deep sleep? It's not just the hours, but the quality of the sleep you get. A lot of people focus on the exercise and then forego the sleep and the food. But in reality, exercise, I would say, comes third.
Mhm.
If you get the food right and the sleep right, automatically, as long as you're moving, your fitness is going to improve overall. And then when you add the workout routines or playing a sport, it gets even better. But
Mm.
ultimately, if your body is clutter, if it's getting in the way, sick days means you're not there at work, so you're losing time. If you have brain fog or you have your body is just in pain, you're not going to work at an efficient level. So again, how do you ensure that you're operating at the highest possible level? Then we move on to relationships, decluttering relationships. I find this to be a funny one because when I talk about it, people assume it means to get rid of people in your life. Now, although that may be true and some people should not be in your life, the clutter that I'm referring to is the clutter between you and someone that is hurting the relationship. And it's something that you wish to eliminate so that your relationship can become stronger again. Now, it could be a parent, could be a child, could be a spouse, a partner, a coworker, a best friend, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the point is, something has happened. No one's talking about it. Assumptions are being made. There are lots of expectations. And ultimately, it's meaning that slowly but surely the distance is just widening as time goes by. And then finally, the physical environment. Again, do you have an environment that allows you to excel? If you like nature, like I do, for example, I have lots of plants in my office. And just by the plants being there, it elevates me and I'm able to work better. The lighting, is energy flowing well? Do you have things in there that make you feel more happy? Perhaps a picture frame of an incident in your life that just brings joy constantly. I mean, anything rather than just a stale, plain walls and simple desk with nothing on it. So create that environment in your house, in your office, which allows you to excel. And once you put all these things together, it just multiplies.
Right. Hi, I'm Tanya, and this is Julie, and we are the founders of Coach Core, your all in one solution for building and scaling a successful coaching business.
At Coach Core, we provide you with everything you need in one place. You can house your courses, manage memberships, run email campaigns, and create stunning websites and funnels, all with our easy to use platform.
And it's not just about the software. We offer built-in coaching and mentorship, helping you implement best practices from certified NLP practitioners and story brand coaches. And that's just scratching the surface of what's inside.
And that's why we're excited to sponsor the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast with Kelley Beveridge. Kelley is a thought leader who inspires and elevates entrepreneurs worldwide.
We believe in the power of community and continuous learning, and this podcast is a fantastic resource for any coach looking to truly grow their practice.
So join us on this journey. Tune into the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast for insights and inspiration, and visit Coach Core to transform your coaching business today.
Coach Core, your path to coaching success.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for breaking that down. And I'm sitting here listening to you. And yes, I agree with all of these things so much. And we speak about the mind. It's like I always tell people, hey, we're the ones who are creating the stories in our life. Are we creating ones that serve us or don't serve us? Right. And with the body, I'm taking a health class right now. And one of the big things, she's read the labels. I've never done this before. And I'm looking at all the sugar that's in the things that I'm actually putting into my mouth that I never knew existed in what I was eating. And so, and I love the relationship part. I like to say the 24-hour rule. So if you have something, an upset in a relationship, clear it within 24 hours so that clutter doesn't compile and you don't just keep sweeping it under the rug and sweeping it under the rug and months and then years go by, right? So it's keep your relationships current. Not an easy thing to do. It requires courage and bravery and communication skills and your physical environment. My mentor used to say willpower doesn't work. So what does your environment look like that can elevate you as you share? And I love that you use that word. And so as you're sharing all of this, I love it. And so I have a question though, because I agree, right? Like in theory, this makes so much sense, right? Start to declutter these areas. They'll start to elevate. Your life will feel freer. It'll create space for growth. Yet, in order to live this life where it then becomes zero regrets, it's going to require courageous decisions, taking risks, whatever that looks like to each person. We all have different risk tolerance. So, how do you coach someone to overcome those fears to step into this bold action and direction for themselves?
Fear is a funny one, Kelly. Fear is a lot of people, when they're looking at fear, they're actually focusing very much on the fear itself
For sure.
rather than what is life going to look like when I overcome this? Now, all of a sudden, you're shifting into a place which is in resonance
Hmm.
with how you wish your life to be versus it's too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard. You see this fence or this brick wall in front of you and you just focus on it. But if you rise above and look ahead, you can see what life can look like.
Yeah.
And so that's just one of the ways that people can, and fear, I mean, we can speak hours on fear, but here's just some quick, simple tips. So one is, what is life going to look like once you overcome? And focus on that, because that gives you that push, that energy, that courage, that whatever it is that's required to overcome. Another one, and we all know this, that fear is a protective mechanism, right? I mean, it's making sure that we feel safe, which is a good thing. But it's not good if if it's always pushing you back in your comfort zone. Because as entrepreneurs, if you're going to be in your comfort zone, you're not going to grow. You're just going to stay stagnant. Your business is going to stay stagnant. And that's not good for you, not good for your investors, not good for your stakeholders, for no one. What if you found a way to give comfort? When I wrote my book, the thing that went through my head was, Saahil, when you did your GCSE, so that's in the British system, we have that in years 9 and 10, if you're looking at it from the North American school system. I got straight A's, except in English. That was the one subject I didn't get an A in. So I kept doubting myself. I go, oh, a book, it just sounds like a lot. I'm not going to be good. I'm not a writer, and blah, 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 right? All the reasons why I should not write the book. And when you think about a book, it seems like a lot. So I said, okay, just figure out the blueprint. And then I said, just name your chapters. And once I got that done, I said, okay, let's just write the introduction. So how do you break it down into bites that are chewable? That you're like, I can do that. That's easy. That doesn't sound too hard. So it's always about taking that small step forward, getting a feel of how it is, feeling comfortable, and then saying, okay, let's take the next step forward and just keep doing that. And then finally, there's another method that I saw is when you see other people do it, and that gives you comfort. You're like, well, if they can do it, so can I. So I remember on our honeymoon, we went to Bora Bora, French Polynesia, and we were swimming in this lagoon, and this lagoon was infested with sharks. Yeah. And I'm going, no way, no way, no way. And then I see all these little kids coming out. And I said, look, they're much easier to eat than I am. They're tiny. If the shark wouldn't eat them, that means I'm safe. So I can go inside. Too funny. Yeah. So whatever works. I mean, there's so many ways to overcome fear, but ultimately, it's how can you take baby steps and focus on the outcome rather than on the fear itself.
Yeah, no, I love that. You and I share a fear of sharks for sure. Traveled the world. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go in that water. Yeah, it's face your fears, right? And you talk about like vision and knowing what's on the other side of the obstacle or adversity and what you choose to focus on. And I love how you just broke that down so simply. And I'm curious because you talked earlier and you talked there was the previous you, which was like, I have no time, I'm unfulfilled, I don't get to see my family often, my health isn't the greatest. You even said I was digging myself an early grave, right? When you were in the hustle of needing to achieve a certain kind of success. And then now your income is actually increased, yet you're having the most adventure, the most fun. You're spending time with your family, you're giving back, you're living in your values of what you're passionate about and where you love to put your time. So there's a very big contrast to the before and after version of yourself. And I'm just curious because it sounds like you've really landed on what your version of success is. And I am so inspired when people can get clear on what that looks like for themselves. How do people go about figuring out what their version of success is for them? Because I honestly think that is almost a big part of the solution to living a fulfilled life is really understanding yourself well enough to know what is going to light you up and cause fulfillment and what success looks like to you. Yeah, that's not an easy question, I don't think, anyways. I'm still in the discovery of it. So, what guidance would you give people to start to unravel what success means to themselves?
Before I answer that question, I do want to mention that before becoming the current version of myself, I thought the previous version was pretty good. But again,
Hmm.
it was one of those things that only when I came to this side, and it's how I feel today, did I realize that actually it was not that great. And I was digging myself an early grave. So it's not that I was in a bad place. I knew something was a little off, but it wasn't bad. I thought I was okay. And like everyone says, accept yourself for who you are and be accepting of this and that. And so I was just accepting, but it didn't feel right. And I only realized how bad it was once I discovered and went on this journey that I've been on for the last, what is it now? Almost 9 years. And what I've come to the conclusion of is in order to live a zero regret life, you have to be fulfilled. In order to be fulfilled, you have to feel successful. In order to feel successful, you have to know what that means for you. Initially, I was living by success of what society was telling me. I was comparing to some of my friends who had more wealth than I did. I was looking for my dad's validation, for example, or my parents' validation of what success is. But in all those scenarios, I wasn't clear on what success meant for me.
Mm.
In fact, when I coach my clients, I ask them, one of the first questions I ask is, do you want to be successful? Everyone, without fail, says yes. And then my follow-up question is, what does that mean? And then you get a little bit of, I think I want to be rich. I say, fantastic. That's good. What does that mean? Is it rich in wealth? Is it rich in health? Is it rich in relationships? Something else? Tell me. And so I realized that it wasn't just me, but in general, most people have not defined what success means. And so I said, let me be the Sherpa. Let me be the guide. Let me enable them to discover for themselves what it means. And so as a mountaineer, we have this concept known as the 7 summits, which is the tallest mountain on each continent, of which I've climbed a few. So I said, let's put this together. What are your 7 summits? Because success is never one thing.
Mhm.
It's a bunch of things that come together. Now, I mentioned 3 that come up a lot, which are relationships, wealth, and health. But you also have personal development. You have community service, spirituality, fun and recreation, and the list goes on and on. So it really depends on you. And no one's here to judge. It's your definition. It's your life. You need to figure out what it means to you. And once you have those 7 summits, identify what does the summit look like on that mountain, right? You've got the 7 mountains. What does the summit look like? Where are you today? And that gives you your gap. Now, I do want to say at this point, it's possible your summits change over time. When you get married or you have kids or your parents pass away or you move countries or there's a tragedy of a close one, your perspective in life may change. And along with that, your summits may change, and that's okay. However, at least it's guiding you from where you are right now.
Mhm.
And once you know those 7 summits, guess what just became easier? Decision making.
Mm.
because you can even prioritize these. So every time now I'm at a crossroad, I ask myself, is this taking me up any of my summits? If it isn't, easy decision, no. And if it is taking me up summits, but it's taking up the lowest priority and maybe not the highest priority at that moment in time, again, easier to say pause, I'll come back to it later. So decision making just became a lot easier. And so that's phase one. The phase two is as I'm climbing up these mountains, and this was a little bit about what we spoke earlier, what am I carrying in my backpack?
Mm.
Is that baggage serving me as I go up, or am I carrying excess, which is not really having any functional purpose? And if it doesn't, then let's identify it and let's get it out, because we want to scale fast. We want to get to the top as quickly as we can, and that's not serving us at all. And then finally, the third step, I refer to it as momentum. And that simply means having some form of accountability in place, either through self or through third party, which ensures that you're putting one step in front of the other. And it always reminds me of my summit day climb. That's usually one of the hardest climbs. Tired, high altitude, low on oxygen, haven't slept for many nights, food intake is not as great. And the weather can be, it's cold, windy. I mean, just a lot of reasons to go down and get into a nice, cozy place. But all I focus on, I don't focus on the summit at that point because it just feels too far away. It's too many hours away. And all I tell myself, I'm like, Saahil, put your right foot in front of your left. And when I've done that, I say, put your left in front of your right. And I just keep repeating that again and again and again in my head. And I tell people, it's not about big shifts. As long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, slowly but surely, you're going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. And I know that from practical real life experience of climbing mountains, right? And absolutely, you can take that philosophy and apply it to our personal life and our business life. And I believe you have your sayings and you speak about getting clear on your summits, and then it's easier to make decisions. So that's the clarity aspect, right? What are you carrying up in your backpack? That's the awareness around the decluttering and then taking action on that. And then being in momentum, which is the one foot in front of the other. And even as you're speaking, it's so profound, yet I'm also thinking it's the basics. Do you know what I mean? A lot of times the answer to life is just go back to the basics. Go back to the basics and apply the basics. And as you're speaking, I'm curious. I had a question for you, and I normally ask this at the end. It's one of my questions I ask. Yet, what is your version of success today for you, Saahil? Speaking of getting clear on what that looks like individualistically. So, what is the life that you're living now, and how are you living out your version of success?
My version of success, without giving the 7 summits, if I had to just sum it up in 2 words, I would say inner peace. That's simple.
Yeah. Tell me more.
It's a bit, I mean, you've probably heard this as well. When the water is still, you can see through it.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's lots of ripples and whatnot, there's not much clarity. So I find that when I'm at my most peaceful self, I'm able to think better. I'm able to see things more clearly. I'm able to enjoy life a lot more. And ultimately, it's eliminating violence from within.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when there's violence within, forget hurting other people. You're hurting yourself. And in my case, because of people pleasing, my emotions were blocked. And I refer to emotions as energy in motion. And energy, as you cannot be created or destroyed, it can just be transferred. But what I had done, I had blocked it inside, and it was just circling inside. And so what happens when you have stagnant water? All the life gone, right? Dies. And I was killing myself. I had inflammation. I was constantly bloated. My energy levels would be dipping. And when I say dipping, dangerously low, dangerously low. to the extent that I would just suddenly fall asleep. I've fallen asleep on my desk. I've fallen asleep, believe it or not, in a nightclub. I've fallen asleep speaking to people on the sofa at home. But one time, I fell asleep behind the wheel. And this was as a newly married couple. And luckily for me, we walked out with minor bruising, and there were no other people involved because we went off and went into the rocks and trees. But if you saw the car, Kelley, every airbag came out except mine.
Wow.
And all I can say is, thank God for the seatbelt. I mean, now it's no matter where in the world, it's front, back, anywhere I sit, I'm always wearing a seatbelt. That saved my life. In fact, I was given a second chance at life at that time.
Mhm.
But even then, believe it or not, instead of addressing and trying to find out what happened, I did what any smart person would do. I just ignored it and said, hey, I'm going to stop driving at night. It wasn't until 7 years later, that I actually discovered what was causing this problem. And since then, thank God, those energy dips, they're history.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm grateful that you were given that chance. You obviously were for a reason because you're put on this planet to do some amazing things. And as you're speaking, it's interesting because you've shared two variations of a story. One where you had that happen, where you crashed your car based on just how things were going for yourself, and you didn't decide to make changes. And then one where, like you said, everything was actually going well, yet you had this kind of epiphany of the no judgment. And that's really what triggered you to make changes. And I do feel like there is truth to it that most of the time, though, people will wait until it gets so painful before they decide to change. And so, what advice would you give those who are listening? Because I love the idea of because you have a vision and you're following your dreams, that's the thing that pulls you in the direction of change versus you have to hit like all of this adversity and obstacle and it to get really painful before you choose to. Like, what's your belief on that? And then if you were going to give people guidance, how do we hear this message today and not wait for it to get worse before we decide we want it to get better?
When I came back from that trip, so that trip actually was one of the triggers, and that trip happened 7 years after the accident,
Mhm.
approximately. When I went on that trip, I was already on the search of discovery. I wanted to know who I was. I was starting to ask questions such as, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose in life? And I truly believe if I wasn't on that quest, that trip would not have had the impact that it did. It would have just been another retreat where I enjoyed myself, probably learned a couple of things which I could take back with me and apply in my life. But it wouldn't have been the shit that had occurred. And I truly believe that was the main difference. I was asking myself some very deep questions.
I just had an aha moment for myself as you shared that, Sahil, because I always say to people when I'm coaching them, and let's say we show up to an event for a couple hours, or we're taking a weekend off to go do a retreat, or I mean, even you're going to meet friends for brunch, right? I always say, if you're going to give your time to something, what's the value? What do you want to create from being there? And the way that you do that is to get clear on what you just said. Ask yourself those important questions like, what do I want to learn from being at this event? What are the things I'm wanting to break through today? Where do I want to see growth in my personal life or my business? Or like the quality of the questions we ask ourselves is going to be the quality of the experience we have. Yet the aha I just had is to do that with my life, not just with an event. It's like, and yes, and what about our life? Like, why am I here? What is the experience I want to have with this life of mine? Right? Like, where am I heading? What's going to fill up my cup? So I love that you just shared that. Yet I don't know if anybody else is listening. I just had that aha for myself because I do that in specific situations and scenarios, yet to do that with my life in general. And I do believe that when we start asking the questions, the answers will come if we're looking for them.
I mean, I can get a little philosophical, but just to add a little bit to what you said, I could have been born in a war-torn country. I could have been born where my family would have to make a decision between food, healthcare, and education on a daily basis, and so on. But I wasn't. And so if I'm born with this privilege, and this privilege means I'm not having to make that decision every day. This privilege means I have the basic necessities. It doesn't necessarily mean multimillionaire, billionaire, any of that stuff. It just means I have the choice to live a peaceful life. I can either then keep that wealth of information to myself and be selfish and just keep it enjoyed for me, or I can say, I've been given this opportunity so I can serve. And I've heard from some of the greatest mentors that I have, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, one of my mentors, and one of his mentors, Francis Hesselbein, and the list goes on, Peter Drucker, and they all say something similar. And they say, to serve is to lead. And as leaders, as entrepreneurs, isn't that what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Our companies are fueling this gap, which we feel can be done better. So hence we're serving our customers. We're making their lives better. It's not about me wanting to get rich and exit at a $200 million and stuff like that. Yeah, well, that's all a bonus. But in reality, we're all here to serve. And that's something I keep reminding myself of every single day.
No, I love that. And I love that. To serve is to lead. That's so great. And to not waste the opportunity that we've been given for having this privileged life, right? For ourselves and for our family and the community, and as big as we want to take it. And so thank you for that reminder. And Sahil, I'm sure people who are listening to this are going to want, I know my audience, and I believe that they're resonating with what you're sharing. And you just have such a genuine, kind, impactful, powerful message. I know they're going to want to follow you and know more about you and what you have to offer and what your service is. And so can you share a little bit about yourself and your business and where can we find you? And do you have anything coming up that we can plug into?
Absolutely. So I was nowhere online, and then I was told that you need a good presence online. So I really put a lot of effort into that. And now finally, if you search my name, you're going to find me. Yes. Let's just say whoever has the same name as me probably wants to change it now. But that's thanks to my team. I'm not going to take credit for that. They just did such an amazing job in guiding me and executing. You can come on my website. It's just www.sahilmehta.com. That's SAAHILMEHTA.com. You can search my name on LinkedIn, Instagram, it's Saahil Mehta Official. On YouTube, it's also Saahil Mehta. So there's multiple ways to get through to me, and shoot me a message through any of these platforms. Send me an email. It's a sahil@sahilmehta.com. So yeah, I'm very easily reachable. Would love to connect with fellow entrepreneurs. I love hearing about other people's stories, their journeys, and how we can all elevate one another.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think you said we're going to throw a quiz.
Yeah.
We're going to throw a quiz. Maybe just share what that's going to be in the show notes too, so people can learn a little bit about what's holding them back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a quiz. And what you will get by answering these about 20 questions is you'll get a score, and you'll have an idea of how much potential regret there is in your life. right? So it's kind of putting that mirror in front of you and enabling you to see where you stand so that you can start to make change. Because the last thing we want is you to wake up one day in your 80s, 90s, whatever that age is, and think back and say, I wish I did that. I should have done that. We don't want any of those statements. We just want you to smile and say, I lived a good life. Life is great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited. That sounds amazing to me. I'm excited to take the quiz and always learn more of what I can apply, right? To have no regrets and to declutter and to feel free and the inner peace you speak of. And so, okay, I usually ask three last questions. We talked about success already. So, the tagline of my podcast is Unleashing Greatness Within. And so, what would three tips be that you would give the listeners to unleash their inner greatness?
3 tips. Okay. One is be yourself. When I was people pleasing and trying to please others and being a different version of, I don't even know what I was actually. I was not performing at a very high level. But when I became myself, and I'm telling you, it's so easy to be me. So easy. Doesn't require any effort. Well, just be you. You're an amazing person. It's that easy.
I like that. Okay, so that's one. What would two other ones be?
Take time for yourself on a daily basis. Yeah. Before I used to be just on the run the whole time and I didn't give any time to myself. And someone told me this, it's not, if you're not going to invest in yourself, how do you expect to become a better version of yourself? So invest in yourself by taking out time, ideally in the morning.
Mhm.
But I find that during the day and in the evening, things come up and then it kind of throws you off schedule. You might not get the time you deserve every single day.
Mhm.
And the third thing, and it goes back to what I said earlier, love or pain, the choice is yours. The key word there is choice.
Mhm.
You can choose how you wish to live your life. So make sure you make the choice that elevates you and takes you towards a place of love and not to a place of pain.
Awesome. Oh, Sahil, I love it. Everything you share is just so resonating with myself. And so I'm curious, everybody's going to hop off this episode and be inspired. And so, what would be a call to action that you would give the listeners and myself that we can implement this week to take your message and apply it?
I'm going to share actually 2 things, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
First one is, as you're climbing up the mountain, it's not like this. It's not just keep going up. You're going to go through your peaks and your valleys along the way. And when you're at your peak, that's great. You're going to enjoy those moments. When you're going through those valleys, and some of those could be very deep, it's going to be dark. You may get doubts. I had doubts. I kept telling myself, Sal, just go back to the way it used to be because this is too much pain. I'm about to potentially lose someone I really care about or something in my life. But deep down, I knew in my heart that I was doing the right thing. And I knew that I had to just go through it. I had to get through it because I knew once I did, life would be much better. So whether it's that fear, whether it's that pain, know that it's temporary because after the valley, the peak will come. So that's the first thing that I'd say. And the second one is, and I'll share a story because we all love stories. The,
Mhm.
the sailor goes to the captain and says, Captain, can I get my pay today? The captain says, yeah, come back tomorrow. So the sailor goes to bed and is dreaming about all the ways he's going to spend his money. Goes to the captain the next day and says, Captain, can I get my pay? The captain looks at him and says, hey, didn't I tell you come tomorrow? And so tomorrow never comes. You've
Mm.
heard things on this podcast today. Take one thing and apply it today.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. Right. Tomorrow's not promised. Right. And tomorrow's not promised. So thanks for that message. Saahil, thank you so much for being here. I'm just so grateful that our paths crossed, and I really resonate with your message and the life you're living and who you are as a person. And I love my podcast for this reason, that I just get to meet the most amazing people that otherwise I might not have, from all different places in the world. Like, it's almost probably past 10 p.m. your time. It's 10 a.m. my time, from Canada to Mumbai. And here we are, right, speaking some positivity into the world. And so that's the magic of what we're talking about. And I just appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here.
No, I feel very humble and grateful that you've had me on your podcast. And I hope your audience got some valuable nuggets today.
Absolutely. They absolutely did. If there was one more thing you want to share before we say goodbye, any last thoughts?
Love conquers all.
So true. Thanks for being here. Wow. I just love Saahil's message so much. And this is why I love my podcast. I get to meet the most amazing, phenomenal, inspiring people from all around the world that otherwise I would not normally meet. Like, how cool is that? And he's just so inspiring. I love his message around living a zero regret life and decluttering your life, where it started from his experience of no judgment, and it allowed him to go out there and take the masks off and just be himself and be free. And how amazing would that be if you're listening and you struggle with caring what other people think, and you just feel confined to your own physical, mental, emotional health? And I think we're all in some level on this journey of inner peace. And I just really love his message. Thank you, Saahil. If you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 44 with Joni Taberner. She talks about reclaiming your true expression in life and business, and really how to live your authentic self. So you may enjoy that episode as well. And stay tuned for next week. I'm so excited for next week's episode. We have Lori Rock coming on, and she is a holistic weight loss expert and longevity coach. And she's going to talk about the value of our actual health, about hormones, specifically talking to women in their mid-age, when they're 40s, basically like women like myself, right, around how to really honor our health and our well-being. So that's next episode. So just thank you so much for constantly tuning in. Appreciate you. With love, greatness, and success, it's your host, Kelley Beveridge.